एवरीवन एंड वेलकम टू अनदर लाइव सेशन जहां पे आज हमारा टॉपिक है कंटिन्यूएशन ऑफ मीडिएवल हिस्ट्री ऑफ इंडिया। तो कुछ चीजें लास्ट क्लास से आई होप आपने वीडियो देख लिया होगा इन ऑर्डर दैट यू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट एवर इज गोइंग टू बी स्पोकन टुडे। तो आप एक बार पिछला वीडियो देख सकते हैं, रेफर कर सकते हैं। कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्चुअल जो बैकग्राउंड है वो मैं फिर से रिपीट करूंगा। द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट वी मस्ट कीप इन माइंड व्हेन वी आर डीलिंग विथ मीडिएवल हिस्ट्री, देखिए, अलग अलग किंग्स, अलग अलग रूलर्स, मोनार्क्स, ये तो चेंज होते रहेंगे, बट जो फंडामेंटल अंडरलाइंग स्ट्रक्चर है किसी भी पॉलिटी का, जैसे आज के डेट में अगर हम इंडिया की बात करें तो एक सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट है, फिर उसके बाद स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स हैं और उसके भी नीचे म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशंस और पंचायती राज इंस्टीट्यूशंस ये फंक्शन करते हैं। इन लेवल्स पे गवर्नमेंट डिवाइडेड है, बट एट द सेंट्रल लेवल द होल कंट्री इज यूनाइटेड। ये फीचर एग्जिस्ट कर रहा था एंशिएंट टाइम्स में। तो एंशिएंट टाइम्स में क्या होता था, एंशिएंट टाइम्स बोले या फिर जो एंशिएंट हिस्ट्री का जो पीरियड है, जो कैटेगराइजेशन करते हैं, तो इसमें देयर वाज ऑलवेज अ सेंट्रल कंट्रोल, सेंट्रलाइज्ड वी कैन से अथॉरिटी, सेंट्रलाइज्ड अथॉरिटी। जैसे कि अगर हम एग्जांपल लें सम्राट अशोक का, तो अशोकाज एम्पायर एक्सटेंडेड फ्रॉम अफगानिस्तान समवेयर अराउंड हियर अप टू दिस रीजन, और इस पूरे डोमिनियन पे जो कंट्रोल था वो एक सिंगल पर्सन में, द लोकस ऑफ अथॉरिटी रेजाइडेड इन अशोका, एम्परर अशोक। या फिर गुप्ता टाइम्स में आ जाए तो उस टाइम पीरियड तक भी ये सेंट्रलाइज्ड कंट्रोल वाली चीज वैलिड थी। लेकिन उसके बाद बिकॉज ऑफ द पॉलिटिकल चेंजेस, बिकॉज ऑफ द ट्यूमल्ट हैपनिंग ऑल अराउंड, ये जो आप देख रहे हैं हुनाज, तो ये हुन इन्वेजन भी हुआ इंडिया पे एट द फैग एंड ऑफ गुप्ता पीरियड। और इसके बाद एज वी हैड सीन, ये जो इंडिया का जितना भी रीजन है, तो पॉलिटी विल बी अफेक्टेड बाय ज्योग्राफी। ये जो प्लेन रीजन है, तो दिस वाज डिवाइडेड इनटू थ्री पार्ट्स। एक लोअर गंगा वैली, मिडिल गंगा वैली, देन द गंगा प्लेन्स, द गंगा बेसिन एक्सटेंडिंग फ्रॉम कन्नौज अप टू आगरा, मथुरा वाला रीजन, एंड देन this region that covered parts of Indus and Punjab region. So this is indicative of how the polity was divided because of geography. ये लिमिटेशन इसलिए थी बिकॉज एनी किंग लोकेटेड इन हिज कोर रीजन कुड ओनली एक्सटेंड डायरेक्ट अथॉरिटी अप टू 250 माइल्स, नॉट मोर देन दैट। उसके बाहर जो भी वो अटैक्स कैरी आउट करते थे, दैट यूज्ड टू बी ओनली फॉर प्लंडरिंग, फॉर पिलेज, फॉर लूटिंग द रिसोर्सेज। दे नेवर एक्सटेंडेड देयर रूल ओवर देयर। तो यही सेंट्रल की डिफरेंस जो है एंशिएंट और मीडिएवल पीरियड के बीच में, वो ध्यान में रखने की चीज है। यही चीज अगर जब साउथ में देखें तो अलग अलग जो ये रिवर वैलीज हैं, माउंटेन्स हैं, उनके कारण देयर वर सेपरेट कोर रीजन्स, जिसे हम बोलते हैं कोर रीजन, किसी भी एम्परर का कोर रीजन, जहां पे एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोडक्टिविटी वाज इनफ टू सपोर्ट द आर्मी। उसके बाहर के रीजन, 250 माइल्स के बियॉन्ड वाला रीजन, देयर वाज नेवर अ डायरेक्ट कंट्रोल। इसी को कहते हैं इंडियन वर्जन ऑफ फ्यूडलिज्म या फिर सामंतवाद। सामंतवाद जिसमें कि एग्जिस्ट किया करता था सामंत चक्र। जैसा कि हमने लास्ट लेक्चर में देखा था, सामंत वर्ड का मीनिंग इनिशियली होता था द बॉर्डरिंग नेबर या फिर सिंपली नेबर। एंड व्हेन दीज नेबर्स बिगैन टू एक्सर्ट देयर ओन कंट्रोल, तो तब जाकर के सामंताइजेशन या फिर इंडियन वर्जन ऑफ फ्यूडलिज्म जिसको कहेंगे, वो शुरू हो गई प्रैक्टिस। इस प्रैक्टिस के अंतर्गत, इस प्रैक्टिस में क्या होता था कि एक जो भी डोमिनेंट किंग है जिसका वॉरफेयर इज सुपीरियर, वो भले ही डायरेक्टली कोर रीजन के बियॉन्ड अपना कंट्रोल एक्सर्ट ना करे, लेकिन जितने भी प्रिंसेस, जितने भी किंग्स थे, दे बिकेम ट्रिब्यूटरी, यानी कि उनको टाइम टू टाइम ट्रिब्यूट्स प्रेजेंट करने होते थे उस किंग को जिसकी ये लोग सुजरेनिटी एक्सेप्ट करते थे। सो दिस इज द कंसेप्चुअल बैकग्राउंड। नाउ लेट अस लुक एट सम ऑफ द फीचर्स। तो जो डिफाइनिंग फीचर है मीडिएवल टाइम पीरियड का, दैट इज अबाउट ट्राइपार्टाइट स्ट्रगल। क्योंकि आपने देखे कि 3 या 4 कोर रीजन्स में डिवाइडेड था जो भी ज्योग्राफी है इंडिया की, तो उसी में ट्राइपार्टाइट, 3 पार्टीज के बीच में स्ट्रगल हो रहा होगा। एक बार A will attack B, B will attack A will attack C, और इसी तरह से the control will keep going in different hand, it will keep exchanging hands. तो ये ट्राइपार्टाइट स्ट्रगल इन द नॉर्थ इंडिया वाज मेनली बिटवीन गुर्जारा प्रतिहारास नॉर्थ रीजन में। प्रतिहारा का मतलब होता है गेट कीपर, प्रतिहारी। एंड कौन सा गेट कीपिंग कर रहे थे ये लोग? तो अगर हम ध्यान से देखें तो ये जो रीजन है, जितने भी इन्वेजन्स हुए हैं इंडिया में, दे हैव अकर्ड थ्रू दिस रूट, बिकॉज नेवल रूट से एंट्री विल नॉट अकर टिल द टाइम नेवीज आर सो पावरफुल, दैट विल बिगिन विद द एंट्री ऑफ पोर्चुगीज। लेकिन उससे पहले जो भी इन्वेजन का रूट था, भले ही हुन्स हो, भले ही मंगोल्स हो, कोई भी हो, वो इसी रूट से आएगा। सो दिस रीजन बिकम्स द गेटवे ऑफ इंडिया। गेटवे ऑफ इंडिया ब्रिटिश ने, जो मॉन्यूमेंट है वो बॉम्बे में इसलिए एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है बिकॉज ऑफ द हिस्टोरिकल फीचर दैट द किंग एंटर्ड द किंग व्हेन ही विजिटेड फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम इंडिया। तो वो बॉम्बे पोर्ट पे उतरे थे, उस कमेमोरेशन में उसको गेटवे ऑफ इंडिया डिक्लेयर किया गया। बट अदरवाइज इफ वी सी, जो भी इन्वेजन का रूट था, दैट यूज्ड टू हैपन थ्रू दिस रूट, और इसीलिए गुर्जारा प्रतिहारास will be looked at as the gatekeepers of India. So गुर्जारा प्रतिहारास, पाला डायनेस्टी, पाल डायनेस्टी, जिनके फेमस किंग्स थे गोपाल, धर्मपाल। So these people will be situated in eastern India. Eastern India. And then we have the Rashtrakoot rulers of the Deccan region. So these were the three dominant powers जिनका आपस में tripartite struggle चल रहा था. Also, what is important, as I had repeated in the previous class, that the Pala dynasty represents two very important things. They were the last bastion of Buddhism. So Pala rulers were the last dynasty to patronize Buddhism. और उसके बाद because of factors like non-violence, इसको लोग, जो बुद्धिज्म प्रीच करता है non-violence, तो लोग इस non-violence को, they will ascribe that India has been captured, has been conquered because of all the non-violent policies spread by non-violent, not policies, but non-violent doctrine. The doctrine of non-violence as spread by Buddhists will lead to the weakening of military forces. और इसी कारण से बुद्धिज्म will ultimately be eliminated. With the elimination of Pala dynasty, Buddhist religion will also exit India. And the reason, while this might not be asked as part of any question, what is important to understand that the degeneracy or the decline in morality or other such social evils that entered India, or the reason why Indians became dogmatic in their philosophy, was that there was no one to challenge, no one to counter this philosophy, whatever philosophy was going on. And once your ideologies, your philosophies stop being questioned, they turn into a dogmatic thought. So बुद्धिज्म के साथ constantly जो debates होती रहती थी, भले ही शंकराचार्य कर रहे हो उस डिबेट को फ्रॉम द साइड ऑफ हिंदुइज्म, या फिर रामानुजाचार्य कर रहे हो, तो these debates will come to an end. और इसी कारण there will be no solid foundation, no solid background जिस पे लोग अपने beliefs को base करें. And that is why the decline, moral, material, all these decline will start happening, because the thoughts will turn dogmatic in the absence of Buddhism. Buddhism and Jainism, both these were highly rational religions. Even Einstein says that there is no other scientific religion like Buddhism. जितने भी आप देखेंगे बहुत ही well educated हमारे freedom fighters थे, जैसे बाबा साहेब डॉक्टर भीमराव अंबेडकर, तो he also ultimately converted to Buddhism because it provided some rational principles of leading life. Then, as an example, you can remember that Vatsaraj conquered large parts of Rajasthan and northwestern India around 783. Or then, उसके बाद, at one point of time, Vatsaraj, who was a Gurjara Pratihara ruler, उनको अपोज करेंगे गोपाल एंड धर्मपाल. फिर वेस्टवर्ड ऑफ बंगाल, यानी कि बंगाल से इस तरफ ये लोग अपना रूल, पाला रूलर्स, एज आई टोल्ड यू, दे वर सिचुएटेड इन द बंगाल रीजन. तो अब वो लोग ट्राई करेंगे कॉन्क्वेस्ट करना टुवर्ड्स नॉर्थ वेस्टर्न रीजन्स एंड द डेक्कन रीजन. डेक्कन रीजन में सिचुएटेड हैं राष्ट्रकूटास, So at one point, their ruler Dhruv will end up defeating both Pala rulers as well as the Gurjara Pratihara rulers. And this is how the tripartite struggle will continue. It is this tripartite struggle that will sap the energy, that will sap the wealth of India and ultimately provide an entry point to invaders like Mahmud of Ghazni या फिर Muhammad Ghori. ये सारे लोग enter ही इसलिए कर पाएंगे because the entire energy, the entire well-being will be sapped because of such constant warfare between different parties. And as you can see further, again, what will happen? That the Gurjara Pratihara ruler Vatsaraj, who was defeated, his son Nagbhat will again restore the glory of Gurjara Pratihara dynasty. So you can imagine that in such a struggle, lot of men will die, lot of wealth will be devalued, lot of pillage and plunder will happen, and this will sap India of its energy. Now, Arab invasion. So generally, when we equate Islamic rule, the beginning of Islamic rule in India, the prominent dynasties that we see begins with the Delhi Sultanate. But it is not so, and the Arab invasion had already begun during the 700s, or what we would call the 8th century. During the 8th century, an incident took place, a very insignificant incident, in which some orphans were being sent to the Caliph of Baghdad. And during this voyage, what happened? Some pirates attacked that ship. And because the Caliph of Baghdad requested the ruler, the Shahi dynasty of Baluchistan, he ordered the dynasty, the ruler, to punish those pirates. And when he will refuse to do so, there will be an attack led on this dynasty. And that will establish a bridgehead, a crossover region from where Arab world will connect with the Indian world. And this is the time period when lot of Upanishadic texts or mathematical texts will be translated to Arabic and Persian, and they will spread to the Western world as well. So an exchange of knowledge was constantly happening, and Islamic invaders, other than pillaging and plundering, they did contribute to the spread of knowledge from India to the West. So this was the small incident. Muhammad ibn Qasim, he was the general who captured Sindh. So do remember this name. When it comes to the Islamic invasion beginning in India, then we must remember this name, Muhammad ibn Qasim. Later on, even he was murdered and removed from his position and then murdered by the orders of the Caliphate. Then the most famous invader in India, his name was Mahmud, not Muhammad. Remember, he was called Mahmud, and because his native place was Ghazna in Afghanistan, that is why he is called Mahmud Ghazni. But the right way to say would be Mahmud of Ghazni. Of Ghazni. Now, this invader, he is famous for leading 17 expeditions to India in a time span of 25 years, starting from 1000 AD to 1025 AD. He will lead multiple attacks on India. And the reason for this was that he did something that no other ruler had ever tried, no other conqueror, no other invader had ever tried, and that was taking the route of desert. Because nobody expects, and it is also a very difficult route to take, nobody expected people to come invading through the desert. And because he will try something so impossible and succeed at it, that is why he will lead many successful invasions. His last invasion was that of Somnath temple, in which purportedly 50,000 people died because they were worshipping God and they thought God will come to save them. They failed to realize that it is the God within them that they need to invoke in order to protect themselves. So, the Shahi dynasty, who was captured, which was defeated even by Muhammad ibn Qasim, the same Shahi dynasty will fight Mahmud of Ghazni again. And Ghazni will also defeat Gurjara Pratiharas, Chandelas of Bundelkhand. They will cover a large distance. They will pillage and plunder cities and centers like Mathura, Kannauj. All these places were invaded by Mahmud of Ghazni. Thaneshwar, from where belonged the Pushyabhutis, must remember. Pushyabhutis and their famous king, if you have seen the last lecture, then you would be able to recall, was Harshvardhan. Harshvardhan belonged to the Pushyabhuti dynasty, and their seat, the seat of their authority, was Thaneshwar or Sthaneshwar, situated in Haryana. Then Mathura, Kannauj. Kannauj had been elevated to the status of imperial capital after Patliputra when the capital was shifted. So all these places of imperial glory, they will be pillaged, plundered and destroyed by Mahmud. Then, as I have already told you, the famous incident of Mahmud looting and destroying the shivling at Somnath temple will also occur. Then look at this massive amount of gold, 6.5 tons or 6.5 thousand kgs of gold he will be able to take away from India. In going back during this expedition, many of his compatriots, many of his soldiers, they will die in that exhausting trip across Thar desert, but still he will be able to take away all the loot, and as long as he lived, he declared his country to be tax free. He never had to tax his subjects anymore. Then, although despite all of his bad or evil qualities, he did host some famous scholars at his court. Two of them, most famously, are Al-Biruni, who wrote Kitab al-Hind. He wrote the book Kitab al-Hind. Hind means the land beyond river Sindh or Indus, Sindhu. And that is the book he will write. Then another famous scholar, Firdausi, who wrote the book Shahnama, or a history of all the kings, the Shahs. And these two were in the court of Mahmud. So this also is a fact, pertinent fact that you must know. Then the Shahnama has the epithet of being the most comprehensive account of India ever written before the advent of Europeans. European powers, you must remember, European powers come to India for the first time in 1498. It was Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama, very close to the year 1492, in which Christopher Columbus will end up finding West Indies. So before this, Shahnama retains the epithet of being the most comprehensive account of all the kings till date. Then after Mahmud, the name that automatically comes up is that of Muhammad Ghori. Now he was Muhammad Ghori, and he too belonged to the region Ghor. However, his name was not Mahmud, he was called Muhammad. Then the primary difference between these two is that while Mahmud's intention was only to loot and plunder India, Muhammad Ghori, in contrast, he always wanted to establish a rule, annex the territories, and be an emperor of India. But what will happen? His conquest begins early, and it begins with the conquest of Multan beyond Indus River, what is today part of Pakistan. However, in 1178, he will face defeat, and Chalukyas of Gujarat, Chalukyas, they are also known as the Solanki rulers. So these people will defeat Muhammad. Now, people who have read the life history of Muhammad, at times they say that it is very inspiring, his grit, his determination to conquer India. And therefore, we see that after a wait of 14 years, after waiting, after consolidating his forces, after finessing, after mastering, attaining mastery over his strategy, he will again attack India. And the very famous Battle of Tarai will occur between him and Prithviraj Chauhan, in which in the first one, Prithviraj Chauhan will be victorious, but finally, Muhammad will be able to defeat Prithviraj Chauhan. Now, when we take the name of Prithviraj Chauhan, then we must know the literature associated with Prithviraj Chauhan, as we have already discussed. most of the information that we gather about the historical period will come from two sources, mainly archaeology as well as written records. And the record of Prithviraj Chauhan's exploits will be documented in Prithviraj Raso, written by Chand Bardai. Chand Bardai. So this becomes a very important text because it documents the exploits, the courage, the valor of one of the most brave kings in India, Prithviraj Chauhan. So you already know this one was won by the Rajput Confederacy, but because of some intrigue, because of internal strife with emperors like Jaichand, he will end up losing. Jaichand ended up giving some information as well as some of his military might, lending it to Muhammad Ghori because of internal animosity between these people, and they were not able to realize the importance of nation as a whole, what this will lead to for the whole of India, and therefore Muhammad will end up succeeding and establishing the Delhi Sultanate. So as we saw in ancient times, the most important military technology or the military equipment was war elephants, because a person sitting high on an elephant is almost like walking or moving sitting inside a castle, and it will be difficult to penetrate that castle. It will be difficult to make any of the weapons reach that fortification. But with the advent of another technology, that is archers on horseback, these archers on horseback, all their life they had been trained to ride horses as part of their own body, and they will be so adept at archery that the horse is moving in this direction and they will be able to turn around and still carry out archery attacks, and therefore they will emerge victorious. Even 10,000 good archers will be enough for a military that is 10 times more massive. So this was one of the main reasons for the victory of Islamic rulers, Islamic invaders. Then in 1193, he will defeat the mighty Gahdwal king dynasty, and the Gahdwal dynasty was ruling over Kannauj at that time. So now you see, from the gateway, they have reached the middle Ganga basin and their conquest is nearing completion. The empire is expanding. But because of an intrigue, Muhammad will be killed and the territory will be handed over to his able slave, Qutubuddin Aibak. It is also known as Ilbari dynasty, or slave dynasty. Now, you might wonder, when Qutubuddin Aibak is ruling India, he has been handed over the entire territory. Why are we calling him slave? Why are we calling him that he belonged to? Why are we saying that he belonged to the slave dynasty? The reason is that these warriors, initially, it is very easy to surmise that initially these were generals in the army, and these generals, their training started young. When as slaves they were bought, इनको खरीदा जाता था कुछ पैसों के लिए, and they were always under the command, under the charge of the person buying them, who used to train them militarily and bring out the best in them through many spars and other competitions, and they ended up being capable military generals. And because of this loyalty, ultimately they will be made rulers. So that is why we say that they belong to the slave dynasty, because their origin, how they began their, so to say, career begins with being a slave, and they rise up the hierarchy to becoming ruler. So it is Qutubuddin Aibak. You should know Qutubuddin Aibak will begin the construction of Qutub Minar. Construction of Qutub Minar. Qutub Minar, initially, or the purpose behind erecting this minar was to show the might of Islam, and also to read the daily khutbah or the prayers read in honor of Muhammad. So it was for this purpose that Qutub Minar was built, but it will be completed by his son-in-law, Iltutmish. Iltutmish himself will be succeeded by his able daughter, Razia Sultana or Sultan, who, because of the intrigue and the backwardness in mindset of the times, will be removed from her position by the important, very powerful nobility, Chalisa, 40 nobles, who dethroned her ultimately and took control of the empire. Then, what you must remember is that it was Qutbuddin Aibak who died playing polo. This is a very well-known question, very well-known fact, that which king in India died playing polo? It was none other than Qutbuddin Aibak. Then you must also know that it was one of the generals of Muhammad Ghori, known as Bakhtiyar Khilji. So Bakhtiyar Khilji is infamous for Bakhtiyar Khilji infamous for destroying Nalanda University. Destroying Nalanda University. So he was one of the generals of Muhammad Ghori. Then, as you can understand, the reasons why India will be conquered, first of all, there will be a lack of unity against an outsider, because everybody will be in a state of strife, in a state of war with their neighbors. So there will be no sense of trust, no sense of unity. Furthermore, caste differences will isolate different groups. There will be no solidarity, because differences means absence of solidarity, absence of oneness. So unless all the forces, all the rulers united against such mighty and strategic invaders who had 10,000 archers on horseback, it will be very difficult to compete with them, and therefore India will be conquered. Another reason is that Islam was a new religion then, and the zeal of doing something greater, larger than life, that will be strong in them. Rulers will use the factor of religion. They will inspire these soldiers by using the term jihad, that you are not committing, you are not doing an act for your own self, you are not being selfish, rather you are doing it for the glory of God. And therefore people, they will not even care about their life. They will be kind of kamikaze attacks, and therefore these will be much more, these soldiers belonging to the Islamic new faith of Islam, they will be much more zealous in fighting wars compared to their opponents, that is caste divided Indians. Then it is the thing about freemen versus well-trained cavalry. Now, as I have already told you, these people, as we saw, they were slaves bought in a young age, and they will have continuous military training for all their career. They will be trained soldiers, trained cavalrymen who will be fighting against freemen. Somebody is a farmer who has picked up a spear or a sword, and now such a person, you can imagine fighting against a trained soldier. It will be a very uneven match. It will be a very uneven competition. And you can easily imagine that one such trained soldier will be good enough to kill 10, 20, 30 or 50 such untrained soldiers. So that becomes another reason why India was conquered. Strategy. We have already seen that they were strategic in their warfare. They have swift horses. So sometimes what they will do, a military column is just moving forward like this, and these swift horses will attack these people from outside, from flank. They will flank such a column of military from two sides and attack them from behind. There will be no way for them to escape these attacks. These bows and arrows, they will not be able to escape. And we have already seen the concept of jihad being used by the rulers, by the generals. So these people will be more zealous, more enthusiastic, and therefore they will end up defeating the Indian armies. Then, before we get to know about Delhi Sultanate, which is a mass of lot of confusion, lot of dynasties like the Ilbari dynasty, the Tughlaq dynasty, the Lodi dynasty, the preeminent kings, the preeminent dynasty in Indian history, that is the Mughals. Let us go through them and understand how it rose to prominence. So one of the things to know about Mughal dynasty is that there was no primogeniture, no law of primogeniture. Primogeniture means all of the empire, all the territory being handed over to the firstborn. Whereas in Mughal kings, in the Mughal system, there was no such rule of primogeniture. Therefore, there was a lot of competition amongst the princes, and this will bring out the best among people. As you already know, competition brings out the best. Even, okay, it is not necessary that it brings out the best in people. It can at times bring out the worst as well. People can be power hungry, but overall, what will be seen, what will be witnessed, that whoever is capable of conquering the territory, taking it by force, whoever has that ruthlessness to rule a territory, only he will succeed in taking the throne. And this will bring out the most ruthless, the most able people. And that is why Mughal Empire lasted for a very long time. Starting from 1526 up to 1857, there was an unbroken series of kings who ruled over India as part of the Mughal Empire. So these people, like Babur had the gift of presence of mind. In one of his first battles against a territory in India, what he did was that he bound all his cannons, whatever cannons he had. So he will join all those cannons, make some fortifications, and secure these cannons behind those fortifications, because there was a delay in the opposing forces reaching the place of war. And this was no ordinary place. This was Panipat. And whether you know which battles they were or not, you must have heard three famous battles of Panipat. Three famous battles will be fought in Panipat, the third one deciding the fate of India. So what we need to know is that Babur was somebody who came from Uzbekistan. Other Uzbeks will attack Babur and he will have to flee his homeland, Fargana Valley, where Uzbekistan is situated. His hometown in Uzbekistan is situated in the Fargana Valley, and he will be thrown out from there, and he will have his sight fixed on the riches, on the magnanimous wealth of India, magnificent wealth of India. We will get to know about these battles of Panipat. Let's proceed first with some of the things about the able military general called Babur. So another important thing, why they won. But before that, the reason why Babur eyed India, other than its rich wealth, was that his predecessor, his great-great-grandfather, known as Taimur. Taimur came to India at the end of 14th century, around 1396. Taimur will come to India, plunder India, and then go back, never rule it. But for Babur, it was one of his fiefs, which he will try to take back. And that is why he will set his mind on ruling India, not being a plunderer. Then the reason why these people became victorious is another leap of technology, and that was the use of artillery as well as cannons. Firearms as well as artillery, that is cannons. So cannon warfare by the 16th century, by the beginning of 16th century, cannon warfare was well known. What was not so well known was the use of firearms. And for the first time, the battle that happens against Babur, people will be looking bemused. They will be looking at these firearms in bemusement, and their bemusement will be gone the moment they are shot at with these firearms. So just like we saw an evolution from elephants to horses, from horses to swift archers, to archers on swift horses, and from that to artillery and firearm, we can very clearly see the reason for the victory of Mughal Empire. It was one of this reason because this was the superiority which won them all their battles. The Mughal emperors will never relinquish control of their artillery. आज के डेट में जैसे हम देखते हैं कि न्यूक्लियर पावर या फिर स्पेस, ऑल दीज आर पार्ट ऑफ द प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स ऑफिस. द प्राइम मिनिस्टर कीप्स दीज डिपार्टमेंट्स डायरेक्टली अंडर हिज कंट्रोल. उसी तरह से जो मुगल रूलर्स थे, they never relinquished control of their firearms, their artillery, because they knew its importance. And if it got into the wrong hands, if somebody wanted to create an insurrection, that would have been easily possible with the help of these firearms. So it was never handed to the supervision of any other general. Rather, it was directly under the Mughal emperor. So this is something important that you need to keep in mind. Now, three empires around the same time, starting 16th century, were known as the gunpowder empires. Gunpowder empires because it was because of the use of firearms that these people were victorious. One is Salim I, or Safavid ruler of Persia. Salim I in Turkey. Then the Safavid rulers of Persia. The king was at that time was Shah Ismail, and the Mongol or Mughal emperor Babur. You should also know the reason they are called Mughals. The word Mughal derives from Mongol because they were the descendants of Mongoloid or the Mughal, the Mongols. Mughals, they come from the Mongol line started by Genghis Khan. So this is the reason why the Mughals are called so. They are named so. Mughal refers to their Mongol origins. Then the first fight where I told you that the soldiers of the opposing force, of the opposing party, they were looking at these firearms in bemusement as if some sort of magic was going on. The first battle Babur fights was the siege of Bajaur in Rajasthan. Then the first battle of Panipat takes place in the year 1526, and it will take place between the forces of Babur and Ibrahim Lodi, the last dynasty of Delhi Sultanate. So these two people will battle it out, and this will be the first battle of Panipat. Second battle of Panipat will take place in 1556 when Akbar, who had to ascend to the throne at the young age of 13 years, but at that time he was under the guardianship of Bairam Khan, a very able general. So it was Bairam Khan versus Hemchandra Vikramaditya, as he called himself, or Hemu as we popularly know. So the second battle of Panipat will be fought between Hemchandra Vikramaditya and Bairam Khan, representing Emperor Akbar, who was very, very young at that point of time. Further, you should know that it was the Mongols who introduced cannons and artillery warfare during their raid, which was prevented by Alauddin Khilji. Though Alauddin Khilji is known as a brutal ruler, but one of his merits is that he protected India from the Mongol invasion, or the situation could have been totally different today. This is one of the counterfactuals, or what if in history, what if Alauddin had not been there and the Mongol invasion would have been successful, what would have happened? But Alauddin successfully defended India against the Mongol raids, and so the Mongols could not enter India. And I've already told you this point, that the emperors, the Mughal emperors, they literally stuck to their guns. Sticking to your guns is an idiom which means not leaving, not giving up your weapon, but literally sticking to it. That means actually in real practice, keeping the guns under their direct supervision, as we have already known. Then the three battles of Panipat, you already know. The third battle also you should know, in the year 1761. This was fought between Marathas under Sadashiv Rao Bhau. Marathas versus Ahmad Shah. Durrani, or we also sometimes call him Ahmad Shah Abdali. Ahmad Shah Abdali. Abdalis are one of the tribes in Afghanistan even today. And Ahmad Shah Abdali versus Marathas, how this will decide the fate of India, because after this war, both these parties were thoroughly exhausted, their forces were reduced, and the British were the only ones capable of extending their rule to such a vast territory that belonged to the Mughal Empire, and therefore British will emerge as the new rulers. It was around this very period, 1757 and 1764, when the Battle of Buxar and the Battle of Plassey will take place. We will cover these under modern India. But for now, you should know that the third Battle of Panipat decided the fate of India, that India was going to be ruled neither by the Marathas nor by the Afghans, rather by the British, because both these forces exhausted themselves in this third Battle of Panipat. Then, after Babur comes Humayun. Now, Humayun was Babur's favorite son, but as we have already seen, that since there was no primogeniture, he had a bitter rivalry with Kamran Mirza, and this will be the story through and through. Descendant after descendant, whoever will come to throne will come after fighting a bitter battle. Aurangzeb, as we know very famously, he killed his own brother and presented his head on a big silver platter to his father Shah Jahan. So some of his contributions are that he built a new city near Delhi. That city was known as Deenpana. Then he also lost against Sher Shah Suri. There was a Sur, we call this the Sur interregnum. Inter, that means between, interregnum. Regnum coming from the word reg, that identifies king. So the period between two different kings of the same dynasty, that is Mughal dynasty, there was a Sur interregnum, and it was Sher Shah Suri, a very able, a very brave military general from Bihar. So he was an Afghan. He had his fief somewhere in Bihar, at Sasaram in Bihar, and from there he will start conquering, taking some territories back from Humayun. During a period of 15 years, Humayun will not be actively will be driven out of India. He will be in exile. He will run to Persia, which is present-day Iran, and it is there that Akbar was born in 1542. That is why you will also see later that the court culture followed in Mughal Empire was that of Persia. So there was a lot of Persian influence, and that is because Akbar grew up, he was born and brought up for some time under the protection of Persian Empire. So these two battles, Battle of Chausa and Battle of Kannauj. So at these battles, what will happen? That Sher Shah Suri, he will emerge victorious, he will drive away Humayun, but finally, Battle of Sirhind will be fought, and Humayun will retake all the territories from Sher Shah Suri. Then we already know Akbar was born at the time when when Humayun was in exile. Then his contribution was that he divided different departments according to various elements: air, water, earth, and fire. So fire, the department using fire power was none other than the army. So fire will represent the army. Water will represent all of the irrigation, the Charbagh plans. Mughal rulers are very famous for their Charbagh plan of gardens. They tried to replicate the description of heaven in these gardens, where eternally water was flowing through these channels, and this divided the whole square garden into 4 different sections. That is why known as Charbagh style. However, Humayun, he was an opium addict, and one day during the time he was in his library studying, descending from the steps, he fell down and died. And that is why Akbar, at a very young age, he had to take care. This happens in the year 1555. So Akbar will have to fight the second battle of Panipat in the year 1556. Then the books, the literature, that is very important for any exam. So Babar Nama, the life and times of Babar, he wrote his own. He was a man of letters, Babar as well as Humayun. Akbar was the only one in the Mughal dynasty, not the only one, but one of the emperors who was illiterate. He was unlettered. However, he was very keen observer. He had a very keen sense of observation. He had a brilliant memory. And clubbing these two, he will have a lot of debates, discussions, arguments with theologians, with scholars, with philosophers, and he will turn out to be the greatest emperor that India had seen, because he will start his own brand of religion. He will also establish something known as Ibadat Khana. And he will start the religion of Deen Ilahi. Deen means the dharma or the principles, the way of life that you lead. So Deen Ilahi will be the kind of religion, kind of a cosmopolitan code to be followed by a king. So what we saw, the reason why the epithet of great is ascribed to Ashok and Akbar was because of their genius, because of which they realized, it was their genius that they realized that it is wasteful to extend yourself too thin, to conquer so much territory that while you are in the north, you lose the southern portion, while you are in the west, you lose the eastern portion. So in order to avoid this and rather have a consolidated, well-organized empire, they will start a sort of cosmopolitanism where all cultures, all religions will be equally accepted. And that is why, because of their astute political observation, they will be ascribed the epithet of being great, because they will start a form of secularism, because there will be no discrimination, at least at the topmost level, at least as envisioned by Akbar and Ashok. There will be no discrimination based on religion. That is why these two are called great. So anyway, so Babar, he wrote his memoirs in his native language, Turkish. Then Humayun Nama, because Humayun dies prematurely, his book will be written by his sister, Gulbadan Begum. Then Akbar Nama, we know that Akbar was himself unlettered, so he will commission the work of Akbar Nama to his one of the Navratans, that is Abul Fazl. Tuzuke-Jahangiri, that will be an autobiography written by him, by his own self, by Jahangir, or Jahangir, also known as Prince Salim. Prince Salim, because he was called Prince Salim, because Akbar went to the Dargah of Sheikh Salim Chishti in order to ask for a blessing to have a son, and because after those blessings he will have a son, he will be lovingly called Prince Salim. Then Akbar Nama. Other than that, there is also this book called Ain-e-Akbari. So whereas Akbar Nama tells the story, the biography of Akbar, Ain-e-Akbari translates to administration under Akbar. Administration under Akbar. So, as one of the greats, as one of the most illustrious emperors of the Mughal Empire, Akbar will leave a document for his forebears, for his descendants, so that they could carry out the best practices that Akbar had hit upon. Because Akbar carried out a thorough survey of all the lands for 10 years, he gathered all the data, all the tax records, and then he came to an average which should be taxed from each and every segment of land. So that is why this will again be written by Abul Fazl Aine Akbari, but this will give a picture of how the administration was carried out under Akbar. Aine Akbari, or a reflection of all the administration carried out under Akbar. Then, as we know, that Akbar's court too had 9 jewels, Navratna. Some of the famous ones, as you already see, Abul Fazl, historian, scholar, he will write Aine Akbari and Akbarnama. Raja Todarmal, known for his land revenue policy. The strength of any empire is its economy, and as efficiently revenue will be collected, as great will be the empire, as great will be its strength. So this strength was because of the acumen, the financial acumen of Raja Todarmal. Then Raja Birbal, we have already, or you must have heard some stories of Akbar and Birbal during your childhood days. His real name was Mahesh Das. The title of Raja as well as the title of Birbal was ascribed to him by Akbar. Then we have Faizi, or Sheikh Faizi, as he was known. Sheikh Faizi, he translated the book Leelavati, written by Madhavacharya. See, I already told you that many such works of Sanskrit, be it in mathematics or be it about other topics like philosophy, they will be translated to Persian, and the Persians will carry it in their conquest to European continent as well. Then we know Raja Man Singh, one of the greatest generals, Man Singh's palace in Gwalior and many other places. It was Man Singh under whom there was the legendary singer Tansen. So one of the ablest generals of Akbar, Raja Man Singh. Then Abdur Rahim Khane Khana, he was another one of the 9 jewels of Mughal court under Akbar. Then let us look at the Vijayanagar Empire. Vijayanagar Empire is the last great Hindu kingdom. And after this, because there is Mughal invasion and Mughals will unify all of India under Aurangzeb. Also, after that, there will be the British conquerors coming. So, Vijayanagar Empire is known as the last great Hindu kingdom. It was established by Harihar and Bukka. The story goes that they were captured by the Tughlaqs. They were converted, they were proselytized as well. And Harihar and Bukka, they were the sons of Sangam Dev. That is why we will see that Vijayanagar Empire begins with the Sangam dynasty. So Harihar and Bukka, they will come back. They will consult these 2 saints known as Sayan and Madhav. So these 2 advisors, just like Chanakya had helped Chandragupta conquer territory from the Nandas, these 2 saints, these 2 sages will provide their advice and lead to the establishment of Vijayanagar Empire. Their capital, very famously, was at Hampi. This Hampi is the same place where, or this Hampi has a temple of Pampa Devi. Pampa Devi temple, Hampi. It is the same place where the Ramayana legend will have the brothers Sugriv and Bali. Then this is the region of Vijayanagar Empire is the region between river Krishna, and Krishna is not so down south. Here we have river Kaveri, then you have Krishna and Tungabhadra. So this region is known as the Raichur Doab. Raichur Doab. Doab, land drained by 2 rivers, like we have Uttar Pradesh drained by Ganga as well as Yamuna. The land between these 2 rivers is the Doab. This is known as the Raichur Doab, the land between Tungabhadra as well as river Krishna. Their father was a tributary under Veer Ballal, a Hoysala king. Then the important travelers, they are very important so that we can have unbiased account. See, whoever will be the court historian, the court poet of any king, he will try to glorify his king's reign, but might in this process, he or the court poet might, court historian might distort some facts and put it and present a good picture of the king. But foreign travelers oftentimes they give a clear, unbiased picture of what was actually going on at that point of time. So we have numerous travelers visiting the Vijayanagar Empire. One of them will be Ibn Battuta. In the last class, you must remember that Ibn Battuta, I had told you, he was also a judge under Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and he also visited the Vijayanagar Empire. Then we have Abdul Razak, who came from Persia, not very far away. Then we have Domingo Pace, Portuguese. So remember, Vijayanagar Empire, starting from 1336, it went into 1600s, and during 1498, the visitations by Portuguese will begin. So therefore, you can easily understand why Portuguese are also coming to the empire. Also, Vijayanagar Empire overlooked both the oceans, both water bodies, Bay of Bengal, as well as the Arabian Sea. So therefore, there will be unrestricted access to such visitors, such travelers. Then the 4 dynasties that ruled Vijayanagar Empire. First of all, we have seen Sangam dynasty, then the Saluva dynasty, then Tuluva dynasty. Tuluva dynasty, very famous because King Krishnadev Rai belonged to the Tuluva dynasty. He was also known as Tuluva Narasa, or king of the Tuluvas. And finally, we will have at the fag end of empire, we will have the Aravidu dynasty. Then Nayak system, the feudal system of Vijayanagar Empire was known as Nayak system, under which some people, some able military generals, they were distributed lands, and it was their duty, it was their responsibility to host a number of horsemen, to host cavalry, to maintain a certain number of soldiers, and participate in whatever wars and conquest the king demanded. Then eventually, the reason why this comes to an end, Vijayanagar Empire, is because all the Bahmani kingdoms, all the regions under Bahmani Sultanate, they will group against Vijayanagar Empire in 1565 at the Battle of Talikota, or it is also known as the Battle of Rakshasi Tangdi. And at this battle, the Vijayanagar king will be defeated and Bahmani Empire will divide. There were even Bahmani Empire was divided in 4-5 parts. But what will happen is that Krishnadev Rai, he was an astute leader, astute politician, and he made these Bahmani sultanates keep fighting amongst themselves, and therefore their sight never turned to Vijayanagar Empire. He was able to fend off these enemies by making them play against each other. However, with the death of Krishnadev Rai, such astute politician will die, and this practice will end. He will not be able to, the Vijayanagar king will not be able to play each against another, and therefore it will come to an end. Now, Krishnadev Rai, he is a very famous ruler, so we must know some things about him. Tuluva Narasa, the dynasty to which he belonged, Tuluva dynasty, Narasa, king. So, he is also known as Andhra Bhoj, Abhinav Bhoj, and Andhra Pitama. So now, you must ask, who was this original Bhoj? Like we call Chanakya as the Machiavelli of the East, and we call Kalidas Shakespeare of the East. So, similarly, Bhoj was not somebody from the West, but Bhoj was a Parmara ruler. He was a Parmara ruler. And he, other than being a ruler, he was an able poet, scholar. That is why anyone who, after being a ruler, will also contribute to literature, music, poetry, will be ascribed the title of Bhoj. So, Andhra Bhoj, you must always remember, it was Krishnadev Rai. Then, he wrote in Telugu as well as in Sanskrit. So, Amukta Malyada, which means giving away the garland already worn by you. That is known as Amukta Malyada, anthology of or collection of poems. And then he wrote 2 plays in Sanskrit, Jambavati Kalyanam, marriage of Jambavati, and Usha Pranayam, marriage of Usha. Extended, then his empire, its extent was from Krishna river in the north to, as we saw, river Kaveri down south, deep south. Only the Pandyan kingdom remained. Only the Pandyas remained, and they too were, at one point of time, they were the tributary princes, they were the tributary kings who gave regular tributes to Vijayanagar Empire. And we saw that they overlooked both these territories, Bay of Bengal, both these water bodies, Bay of Bengal as well as Arabian Sea. Then, other than being a conqueror, Krishnadev Rai also performed some good things for his own economy, for his farmers. That was tank and canal irrigation. We know the southern part of India, rivers are not perennial, so there must be some kind of storage of water so that irrigation can be carried out. And he constructed many tanks and canals so that irrigation could take place. Now, since his empire overlooked two huge water bodies in every, so he will need a strong navy. Also, because of Portuguese, there will be a threat. Although he maintained friendly relations because he had to import a lot of horses. But despite that, in order to maintain security, he will need a naval force. And that is why he will develop a strong naval force. Then, just like Guptas, Mughals, they had Navratans, there will be Ashtadiggajs, 8 Diggaj or 8 masters of their craft. And these 8 Ashtadiggaj, although it might be a little difficult to remember these names, but try to remember them. One of them was called Allasani Pedanna, and he will be given the title of Andhra Kavi Pitama. Whereas he is given the title of Andhra Pitama, grandfather of Andhra culture, he will be given the title of Andhra Kavi Pitama, grandfather of all the poets of Andhra. Then he was also the author of this book called Manu Charitram, or the life of Manu. Manu, who averts great disaster during the primordial deluge, who will carry, just like Noah's Ark, he will build a big boat and carry all the species so that after Pralay, after deluge, again, people can be set, society can be started once again. Then, you must have heard of the stories of Tenali Raman. So, Tenali Ram or Tenali Raman, as we know, was part of these Ashtadiggaj, of the 8 great poets, of the 8 great jewels, crown jewels of Krishnadev Rai's court. Then others, Durjati, Pingali Surana, these are other names that come up when we talk about Ashtadiggajs. Now, Bahamani kingdom. So, parallel to Vijayanagar Empire, there was also going on this Bahamani kingdom. The reason many people ascribe the reason that it was called Bahamani kingdom is that it was a distortion of Brahmani kingdom. Because at that point of time, as you also saw, Harihar and Bukka, they were also converted by the Tughlaqs, but they came back to Sayan and Madhavacharya, who reconverted them to Hinduism. Similarly, the founder of Bahmani kingdom, Alauddin Hasan Bahman Shah, also known as Hasan Gangu, so he was said to be a Brahmin, or another version says that his advisors, they were Brahmins, and that is how, with their help, with their advice, he could establish the Brahmani kingdom. So initially their capital was at Gulbarga, which was later shifted to Bidar. Then at one point of time, Mahmud Gavan, he was the prime minister of Bahmani Empire, but people at the court, they will dislike his rise, meteoric rise to power, and they will be jealous of him. They will end up murdering him, and after his murder, the whole Bahmani Empire, the Bahmani Sultanate, it will be divided into these 5 parts. So Nizam Shahis of Ahmednagar. Ahmednagar becomes one of the sultanates. Then Golconda. There is a famous fort at Golconda. It is situated near Hyderabad in Sikandrabad. Then Barid Shahis of Bidar, Imad Shahis of Berar, and Adil Shahi dynasty of Bijapur. So please note it down. Remember these. It becomes a very potent question for any exam. Then we have what is known as the Bhakti movement. But before introducing Bhakti movement, I would want you to know some of the basics of Bhakti, which is The word bhakti comes from the word bhaj, that is to divide. Now, what is being divided? It is God, or God who is established in the temple. That God is being divided and distributed to every devotee who loves or worships him, and thus begins the idea of a personal God, that is bhakti movement. So we will cover bhakti movement in the next class, and I will try to give you a comprehensive view of whatever we have learned till now. There are discrete different elements of history. Now we will try to sum them up, and because bhakti movement represents a socio-cultural change, so it is not just about kings, it is about what was happening in the society. So we will continue in the next class with bhakti movement. Thank you for now. Have a great day.